All right, guys, thanks so much for listening to the CX Chronicles podcast. Super pumped. Today we have Mr. Chris Thomas joining the show. Chris, thank you for joining the CXC podcast, my friend.
Hey, man, Adrian, let me tell you, man, this should have happened a long time ago, man.
I
I know
agree.
you're in my inbox and I just left it there unread, but I knew you were there, man. So now we're here today.
I love it, man. I'm happy. Chris is a busy man, guys. He's got some awesome stuff that he's going to share with us today. We were just talking about it all, before jumping into the call today, but Chris is going to be, I think, one of our first real estate experience professionals that's coming on the CXC podcast to give everybody a totally different lay of the land. So I'm pumped for that.
Hey, I'm super pumped to be on, man. Most definitely.
Chris, why don't you start off how we start off all these shows? Why don't you take a couple minutes to tell the CX Nation, how'd you get into short-term real estate? How'd you get into the world that you're running in today, Airbnb, finding properties all across the country and giving people these incredible experiences when they're traveling and they're trying to find their homes away from home?
Well, it started by, I would say, necessity. There wasn't a want to start this business. It was a necessity because I come from two failed startups. So that's why I'm being on this podcast. I actually listened to a couple of them, and it gave me an idea of actually, if next time I want to run my two failed startups again, my software companies, that I could do it a little bit better because the CX experience was not there. So I came from two failed startups, and I was living on my grandma's couch on welfare. So I needed something to change. And the moment happened for me is when I know I couldn't even feed my son. So it was a very dark time at that time. And my buddy hit me up, would always call me all the time, like, hey, man, I'm having an issue with this Airbnb thing because he had a rental. He was making like $4,000 a month off of it.
Nice.
And he was just like, dude, the guests drive me crazy, man. They ask for weird stuff in the middle of the night. The cleaners sometimes don't show up. I cannot take this, man. The $4,000, they can have it. I was like, how about this, dude? Just, hey, I'll take it over. I'll manage it for you. Just pay me like a couple $100. He's like, I'll pay you $700 to manage it. I was like, oh, dang, $700 when you're broke, right? So I start managing his rental. And then literally a couple days later, Adrian, I was like, you know what? Why don't I just pitch this proof of concept to other investors in the surrounding areas, knowing that my buddy is making $4K. So look at this. That's where the failed businesses came in. That business knack that I had was like, hey, you bring a demand to somebody, right? And you fill it for them. They're happy. So what I did is I manually messaged 500 people on LinkedIn. 500 people on LinkedIn within 48 hours. And we, had a ton of investors come in and we got 47 rentals. I know I'm probably rambling, but I know you want to dive in and probably chime in before I keep going.
That's awesome, dude. So first things first, how did you even get started knowing how to deal with some of these guests? I mean, you just nailed it. Everybody looks at people that are killing it on Airbnb and VRBO and all these home sharing platforms, and they're like, oh man, that looks like a breeze. I want to do that. What people don't realize is part of why you're making the bucks is there's some work involved in it. And then there's a whole lot of know-how. You got to know about calendar optimization, pricing optimization. You got to do the experience. Like Chris, me and you were talking about this the other day, man. If you're not a 5-star super host, people are probably clicking onto the next the next listing, looking for who a super host is that has a bunch of 5-star reviews. How'd you figure this whole game out, man?
You know what's crazy, Adrian? What you just said is, think about what you just said right now. The first words out of my mouth, my buddy was frustrated because of what? Guest success, right?
Yeah.
He was having issues. He was at a 4.2 stars, which once you reach like 3 stars, Airbnb will stop showing your listing. It's just like just like a Google algorithm, right? So pretty much, man, he was getting terrible reviews because he wasn't responding to the guests, wasn't responding to inquiries. Bad things were just happening. And how did I figure this out? I looked what he was doing wrong and I looked what he was doing right. And I just made it my own. When I respond to guests, I had a system in place and I manually did it. There was no softwares in place like I have in my company today that we'll talk about. But when the guest would do an inquiry, I'd have the same pitch over and over, that when they would respond. And then when they would be in the actual booking, actually book, I then send them another warming message. When they booked, when they actually arrived, I sent them. So they're getting constant contact with me. And that was the missing data point that he missed. He went from like a 4.3 stars, I believe, to like a 4.8 stars after like 6 months.
Nice.
Then eventually he's right now, he's at 4.9 still today. I don't manage his rental at all, but that was pretty much it. I figured it out by going in what he was doing right and what he was doing wrong. When he would do it wrong is because he'd be frustrated at a previous guest. So he would take out his anger on the new guest or the guest that was coming in. So
yep. So that's awesome. I think one question before we jump into 4 pillars, Chris, is in terms of you, what type of learning ramp was that? Was this over a matter of a couple bookings? Was this over a matter of a couple months, a couple of years? How long did it take you to learn this game?
Actually learn the game itself. I'm still learning the game. That's a pretty broad question. I'm still learning the game, man. I'm always learning
every day, right? Every day there's something new.
Yeah. I'm not no master of B&B. I'm still learning the game, man. It took me, I did not have the luxury. Like I said, my son was, we weren't in the best financial position. So I didn't have the luxury to do certain things, man. I had to work literally 20 hours to understand customer service, customer success. I picked up a couple books and things like that. Internet, I did tons of Google search. Hotels, I did a ton of what hotels were doing. I looked at hotel customer service and I literally would learn it, like what they did, how they did it, 5-star services, what did they do? And I just implemented in his little listing that was in SJC, San Juan Capistrano. So, and that was it.
Yep. That's awesome. So, that's awesome. And it's not an easy game to learn, guys, Chris and I were talking before the show about, and Chris is going to get into his portfolio with us today, but for me, my wife and I, we have a couple properties, right? And we know how hard that can be. And Chris, the schooling that I got, I was super lucky, man. One of the startups that I had the pleasure of working at in New York City was called One Fine Stay. And essentially we were a white glove Airbnb. So a lot of times when friends ask me, they're like, Adrian, how did you and your wife get so good at doing your Airbnbs? I'm like, well, I had the pleasure of working at a company for 2 years that did this stuff. We did the high-end stuff. And dude, I was constantly taking notes. I was taking mental notes. I was listening to what hosts were saying. I was listening to what guests were saying. I was always paying attention to like the super difficult part of the job that our sales team had, because they had to figure out how to do that supply and that demand matching that you were talking about. But it is a wild world, sir. And I agree with you. It's almost like every booking or every guest experience, you learn a few new things that you sort of tuck in your playbook.
100%. And the benefit that you had is you're exposed to it.
Yeah.
So that's incredible. Yep. Is One Fine Stay still around? Are they still around?
Yes, sir. So Accor Hotel Group, a European hotel chain, they actually bought the company years ago for a little over $200 million. I want to say, Chris, today, people should double check this, onefinestay.com, but they're in 50 global markets today with these ridiculously beautiful, gorgeous, dope places. They've got mansions, penthouses, luxury apartments, suites, chateaus. It's crazy. So it was a really, really interesting world to be in. Chris,
and were they in the arbitrage space? Just like
no, a big part of what One Fine Stays game was, many of the hosts that we would go out and partner with, these were people that have multiple properties across the world.
Gotcha. So, okay, got it.
So similar to some of the clients that Chris, that you were telling me about with you, these folks were looking for people who had the asset, they had the home, they had the available inventory, the sellable dates. They just didn't want to do anything. These people were, athletes. They were business leaders. They were musicians. They were actors and actresses. These people were big deals, and they just wanted other people to be able to come in, manage the book, exactly what you're talking about, Chris. Manage the bookings, manage the calendars, deal with everything that pops up during a stay, and then just get the check at the end of the month. That's
so true, man. My buddy's a CFO. So, and he doesn't want to deal with, come on, man. He doesn't want to deal with, he doesn't want to deal with that stuff, dude. He's like,
you don't want to deal with that.
He's like, man. He's like, he's like, just take it over, Chris. Yeah. Eventually he started paying me more, because I was getting him so many bookings. I increased his revenue from like 4,000. I think it was how much did I get DC? It went up to like 5,700. Sometimes it'd be like 7K. He has a nice place right next to the Mission. So it's the First Mission, I believe.
Yep.
It's an SJC. So if you're like Catholic, I guess it's a big deal. Yeah. So people would book his place for like weeks, and he would crush. Wow. He was literally right across the street. So he would make a killing.
That's awesome. Chris, I'd love to jump into the first CX pillar, team. Can you spend a
Okay.
minute or two talking about, as you got more and more listings, as you got more and more doors, I have to imagine you had to start piecing together and building a team to help you deal with all the stuff. Can you spend a couple minutes talking about your team?
100%. Well, I work smart, not hard. A lot of people are on this, I think I lost you. 1 second here. Most people are on this show here, mostly engineers. So I just did the engineering process. I did what a successful company was doing. I saw that the staff that they laid off, I reached out to their staff and I said, what was the process you guys did to acquire rentals? How did you guys manage the day-to-day? So they're old employees that worked for this company, this huge company, one of my competitors. I just reached out to them and pretty much took what they were doing and made it my own. So kind of the touch on the team, I have a sales team reaching out to developers and property managers at large buildings, typically public companies.
Okay.
And then once they get the okay, I then have a site manager to go check out the listing, to take pictures, videos, and see if it's a fit.
Yep.
And then I have my data nerds who then do all the data, the opportunity costs, and the potential losses, the potential gains, and what can we make average a month. And that's done. And then when that's done and everything checks off, the boxes are all checked off. Then I have the market manager. And so, you and I were talking about Atlanta before we dived in today, right?
Yep.
So let's talk about that, because that's a real life example that's happening right now.
Awesome.
I hired a marketing man. I hired a manager to pretty much be my property manager there and handle the day-to-day operations. So they're pretty much like the CEO of Signature Stays in Atlanta.
Okay.
So, and that's pretty much it, man. I have the sales staff, I have the data staff, I have the R&D staff, and then I have the actual manager who does the day-to-day stuff to make it happen for us and to make this whole thing jive. And
That's
cleaners, awesome. And then maintenance, and then it just goes down the list.
Yep, that's awesome. I think, folks, for anybody that is thinking about getting into short term, I mean, come on, Chris, you and I were talking about this the other day. You're constantly hearing all these stories on podcasts and all these different stories in the news about these Airbnb wins and VRBO wins and people that are making all this money doing it. The thing that they don't talk about, again, is what Chris is saying. You got to have a network. You got to have a team. You have to have players on the right parts of the field being able to help. I know, Chris, even in my world, like, we've had to have a few different partners come together. You have to have a cleaning solution, somebody that's like at a drop of the dime. The minute you get a booking, they're getting the first text saying, "Hey, this is the date, this is the time. Get ready to rock and roll." Maintenance, you just called it out, man, for your big project down in Atlanta that you were telling me about. Having someone that can literally show up physically onto the property and take care of things. Guys, think about it. Think about any stay that you've ever had in a hotel where a light bulb goes out, a shower stops working, the toilet gets weird. This stuff happens in Airbnbs and short terms all the time. So like having a team that can help you get through all that. Plus, on the guest side, right? Part of guests know that things can break down. They're really looking for what the response is going to be from the host. They're really looking to see how you're going to do it.
You actually stole the words out of my mouth. That's exactly, literally, I was literally just about to say that. That's crazy. Great minds think alike.
Yes,
I was literally just about to say that. It's so true, man. It doesn't care of what happens. It's what you do with what happens.
Absolutely.
And the biggest thing to touch on what you said, Adrian, that I'm dealing with large buildings, and sometimes we have small condominiums and townhouses that we are in business with. However, when something breaks, like the shower head, or there's not enough towels, or the refrigerator might not work, these things happen, right?
Yep.
These big buildings, what I mean by big buildings, there's probably hundreds of units in there. Do you think they're going to come and fix it the first thing right then and there? No. Yes. So that's why it's super important when they do this glamorous lifestyle of Airbnb hosts and people who have hundreds of listings. They don't ever mention the inside of what it takes to actually run this thing inside, because our maintenance crew goes out there sometimes 1, 3 in the morning to fix something for a guest, and they're flabbergasted. They're like, "Really?" I was like, "Yeah, I'll get somebody out there. We'll get somebody out there right now to fix it."
Yep.
Like, that's incredible. I was like, yeah, that's why we maintain that 4.9 to 5.50 stars
all day long. Yep. And people love that stuff, and people are going to leave that stuff in the reviews. They're going to talk about how dependable the host was. They're going to talk about how great Chris's team was popping into to sort those things out. So that's huge. Chris,
Yes,
I'd love to slide into the next CX pillar of tools. There's no way you have 500 doors without leveraging technology, without leveraging some tools. Can you spend a couple minutes talking about what are the major tools that you had to really kind of pull together as you grew your portfolio, as you grew to 500 doors? What are the big tools you use to keep all this stuff on the tracks, man?
Good question. I'm actually glad we're talking about that. This is the most exciting part, actually. So we use Guesty for all of our bookings. So it's pretty much our 24/7 concierge services.
Yep.
We use Guesty, so pretty much they handle all the guest inquiries, guest service, guest communications, bookings, everything. So that's number one. If you reach about 10 listings, I recommend that you go to Guesty. They're number one. Okay.
Yep.
So, and then we have optimized B&B, which means they handle our pricing every single minute of the day to compete with like hotels and other hosts.
Very cool.
So we have that tool. And then we also have a cleaning crew tool called Share B&B. We use them sometimes, but now, since speaking to you, Adrian, I think I told you last time that we're actually establishing a cleaning company.
Yep.
So instead of using these independent companies, we're actually established our own cleaning company, and the tools that they use is typically a Google Sheet and a Google Calendar. And we have a tool that some engineers that are inside of my company have built. So when there's a booking, they'll get like a text message and things like that. I know Hostfully offers that as well.
Okay.
I'll get into them, but pretty much the cleaning crew and the maintenance crew would get a notification if there's like an error or there's a next booking. The cleaning crew would get that text message for that particular, who manages that particular building.
Yep.
Another tool I use for guest success is Hostfully. What Hostfully does, it's a guidebook. It gives them a digital guidebook of what to do in a particular area. So it's literally it's like a Yelp on your phone for the best things to do in this particular area in that building.
Awesome.
So we're trying to build the best guest experience. We want the 5-star service for the 1-star cost.
Yep. And now, does that go right on their phone, Chris? Is that something that they have it right in their palm?
Yep.
That's awesome. That sure beats me and my wife's laminated information packets that we leave on the dining room table.
Hey, that's cool. You know what's crazy? Adrian? Dude, that stuff works. That stuff works. We have some of those in our and some of our downtown San Diego listings.
Yeah.
We have some of those things where these are like small cottages in like North Park where they're not all like super like that. They're like hippie type people.
Yeah.
So we have like I think it's hint brochures. Okay. So our interior designers, and we get so many compliments on it, like the brochure to like things to do in the area, because North Park is a huge brewery town in San Diego.
Yep.
So it just works. Some feedback tools that we use for like to get customer service reviews. Guesty does that as well. Okay. But I also have a team member internally that follows up with them to see how was the service, is there anything we could do to improve, and just to make sure that we get reviews from at least 80 to about 95% of the bookings. And we've been great. We get about 85% of people who stay leave us a good review.
That's awesome. And you just nailed it, man. One of the biggest parts of the magic sauce of short-term rental success, it's the reviews. It's where people start. It's a lot like, it's almost like people, when they're doing their search this day and age, you're looking obviously photos first. You're looking at photos. Do I like the property? Do I not like the property? And then I would argue those people immediately, they scroll right down on Airbnb and they start reading through the reviews, and you're looking and you're seeing, what do people think about the host? What do people think about the actual house itself? The beds. People will literally write, "This is the most comfortable bed I ever slept." Like, they write that stuff, and that's literally going to help you fuel tomorrow's bookings.
Yep, 100%. Because people don't want to be the first person in your place. And that's where it's tough when it's getting started, is when you have that first, you're in the space.
Yep.
When you get that first one, what the next person is looking for is, they're like, dude, all right, is this place even good? It looks nice, but isn't it a sketch area?
Yeah.
Because these B&Bers are getting smart, man. So
they are. They definitely are. Chris, I'd love to pick your brain on the third CX pillar process. Like you've already talked about, so you've got these incredible tools, which probably baked in or built in most of the processes that help you kind of continue to grow the portfolio. But was there as you were kind of getting deeper and deeper into this, and as things were picking up steam, and as you're getting more and more doors, how'd you think about actually putting together? Was there a playbook that you put together? Was there a set of processes or a set of standard operating procedures that, like, you, even if it was just mentally, Chris, how did you build the playbook to keep all this stuff together? Like, there's a lot of things that you're talking about. There's a lot of different moving pieces. How'd you keep it all together, man?
Great question. So the question is, during the process, how do I make sure that we do this at scale and it continues to grow and thrive? That's what it sounds like to me.
Yep.
Okay, cool.
Yep.
You know what, man? It's been trial and error. But there's only so much Chris can do. I know what I'm good at. I know what I'm good at. My job every day is to continue to raise capital. So if I know that I focus on continuing to raise capital to grow this thing, and if I surround myself with everything else, that being great, business development people and great people to help this business thrive. So how did it come about? I think honestly, it was just after trial and error from my software companies failing. I knew that I couldn't raise venture capital. I couldn't raise angel capital. I couldn't raise that stuff because it was only me. Only the ball stops at me, but there's only so much that I can do. So how did it all come about? I just looked at what my competitors were doing, Adrian, and I just implemented it in my own. So one of them was Lyric. I noticed that a lot of the people that they laid off were ex-business development people. So what I did is I went on LinkedIn, paid for the premium service. The best one, it was like $500 or something. And I just literally blasted out a message to all the people who used to work for the company saying, hey, I'd like a 5-minute call. We're potentially hiring. I wanted to see if you might be interested in working for us. And guess what I did during the interview process? I asked them, I didn't do it, but I had one of my guys ask them, how did you guys acquire rentals? What was the process? What kind of contracts did you guys use? Things like that. And so we just got the information from them and we built our business around that. So that's pretty much.
That's huge. No, I mean, look, like one of the, no, you just called something out for our listeners to remember. You have to remember, if someone else has already gone through all the pain, all the effort, all the time, and all the energy of figuring some of these things out that you're about to go try to figure out for anything in the world, anything in business, anything in life, literally anything, start there. You could literally start there, understand what they learned from it, understand what they took away from it, understand the big gains or the big wins or the big themes. And it sounds like when you were meeting with all these different people, you probably heard top trends, top buzzwords, big learning lessons that they saw from their experiences there. And that's a huge takeaway for you. And it's probably what helped amplify or speed up some of the success and some of the growth that your business saw.
What's crazy that something that you said is so true. Success loves speed. It loves speed. And the way to get there is success leaves clues. You don't have to reinvent it. If somebody's already created it and they've implemented the people in there to execute on those, of their goals and what they want to accomplish, you might as well take it from them and apply it to your own. So it doesn't
100%.
take that long. You can literally skip years just by asking the right questions by the right people who are already in the industry. And that's what I did.
Yep. I love it, man. That is the way to do it. That is the way that all up and coming young customer focused business leaders need to be thinking. Take the time to find folks that have been there. They've done that. They've got experience with it, and learn from them, listen and learn from them, and then go build. Chris, I would love to pick your brain on the fourth and the final CX pillar of feedback. You already mentioned reviews, and we talked about reviews and how critical reviews are in the whole short-term game to get to fuel your next bookings. But I'd love to just hear you give me like an idea or two around, as the portfolio gets bigger, are there certain a couple things. As the portfolio gets bigger, is it more difficult to actually make sense of all the feedback that you're getting from your renters? But number two, how does the feedback that you get across 500 doors, how does it fuel what you're going to do next month or next quarter or next year even? Like, does the feedback kind of tee up and set you and the team up for knowing sort of what you're going to go after next, whether it's another market, whether it's another building, whether it's another tranche of real estate? Maybe you're going to start doing the one fine state thing too, and you're going to start picking up dope mansions on the beach soon, in which case I'm coming to California to visit you, sir.
Dude, you got to, man. If you come, we have a nice house out here myself. So check it out. Look, The biggest thing that I use, great question, man. Wow, dude, I've never been asked that on a podcast before. That is a killer question, man. Look, we use a tool
that's what we do, brother. That's what we do.
Yeah, that's a great question, man, because it's actually relevant. Wow. Okay, so pretty much, what is some future? Pretty much, what gives us speculation, right? Without me having speculation, right?
Yep.
What gets us the good knowing to what we're going to do is pretty much we use this tool called airdna.co.
Okay.
It's called airdna.co.
Yep.
That tool, Adrian, has saved me millions of dollars, man. Millions. Okay. And the best thing about that tool is that it tells you what areas are growing. It tells you what are the best performing areas. And 1 second, I have a lot of cleaning crews coming in and out. See the life of an Airbnb. They don't tell you. Do you guys hear this in the background? All this stuff going on.
Chris is on the job, guys, right now. For people that are listening to this podcast and not watching, he's literally on the job right now, getting things done at a building.
Yeah.
I love it, man.
I don't know if I can flip this thing. Let me show you. I don't know if the listeners can see. This just check it out.
Yeah, let's see it. Oh, nice, dude. Where are you today, my friend?
This here is in California, man.
California.
This is my rental. It's my rental here. This is the building.
Wow. How many units do you have in here, Chris?
We have 67.
Damn.
Yeah. So we have right here. There's about we pretty much release half of them. So they have I believe 170 in here. So it's pretty much almost half of them. So
wow.
And these right here, this building that I'm in today, they do about $2,700 average a month. Summertime, each unit does about $5,000 to $7,000 a month.
Damn, that's awesome.
From I would say from June to September, it does about almost $7,000 a month.
Wow. It's a beautiful spot. So for folks listening to the show today, I have Chris on video. Beautiful building, pool, multiple floors. Definitely the type of place when people are going to California or going on vacation, type of place that they want to be. That's awesome, Chris. So Chris. So
when I'm looking for a place like this here, how did I come with the idea to get this place and to know our future endeavors, to know that we don't lose capital and lose money? To all our listeners today, because I know you can't have the visual. So to answer Adrian's question directly, we use a tool called airdna.co that gives us everything that we need to know to make the next decision on acquiring a rental. Without that tool, I'll be honest, I'll be toast. So that is the number one tool that I use to make sure.
Okay. Yep. Yeah. And for anybody that's starting, Chris, right, it's a great place to start with. A lot of people, a lot of friends or family people that are trying to get into short term. They know, that I've been involved in it many years. It's one of the first places that I have them start, Chris, because they'll say to me, "Hey, how do you think that this property is going to perform?" And I go, "It's not up to me, man. Why don't you go look at AirDNA and see what the comps pull, see what the projections show, and then use that as a basic assumption." And then I always say that, Chris, too, assumption, because it's not always perfect. Sometimes it's way more, sometimes it's less. So, but it still gives you a great barometer for what you're to expect.
100%. So you use the tool yourself now?
Yes, sir. Yeah.
Oh, so dude. Oh man. Yeah. So that's almost mandatory. It tells you where the growth is. It's crazy. If you subscribe to some particular I don't know, Dylan did it for me, but he subscribed to like some special list that they have where they send you the best growth cities day by day.
Yep.
So Austin, Texas is growing. Houston, all of Texas is just skyrocket. Florida, Nevada.
Florida's on fire too. Yep.
Florida is on fire where your brother is. I believe you said in Tampa, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Fort Lauderdale's crushing it. Like, dude, it's like all
Chris,
these places.
From what I understand, like there's the one interesting piece of the pandemic. You got people in cities like New York City, Chicago, San Francisco. There's a big mass exodus, man. People are saying, wait a minute. Why am I living in some of the most expensive cities in the world? Number one, living in a box, paying thousands a month to live in a box.
Yep.
Number two, those are high tax states. Call it what it is. I know, all love to my friends in those states, but it is a high tax state. And you've got markets blowing up on fire in Florida, Texas, Arizona, Nevada, Las Vegas. Chris, you have properties in Las Vegas, don't you?
Yes, I have properties, but they're not B&B. They're full. They're long. They're pretty much like long-term, short-term stays.
Okay.
So pretty much, and Las Vegas very strict, man. Let me touch on that.
With short-term?
Oh yeah, because hotels. Come on, the hotels.
Yeah, so it's protected. It's a protected
industry. Super. The mafia's there, man. So one second.
Yeah.
Sorry for that mute.
No, you're fine.
So life of the life of B&B, man. So pretty much, pretty much, man. Florida is just absolutely booming. And one thing that you said with in regards to a mass exodus, people are really starting to recognize is that these big regulated cities that don't allow Airbnb, New York City does not allow Airbnb. Los Angeles is now regulating Airbnb. San Diego might regulate Airbnb. And it is the most retarded thing you can do because you have individuals who don't pay rent.
Yeah.
You have people that are going to bring money to your economy.
Yeah.
And you're raising your rents. People aren't paying the rent. And now you have people actually leaving the city at an astronomical rate. It makes no sense to me. It's just all ego driven.
Yep.
And it's crazy, man. And I just think it's a big tax thing because, that's the biggest thing. It's always about the taxes. Who's paying them? Hotels are paying them.
Yep.
But hypothetically, they're not paying them. But that's another topic of a conversation.
Yep.
But some of these highly regulated cities are losing out, on this opportunity. Look at the most B&B friendly places. It's the most growing places. Florida, the example. Look at Florida. Oh my gosh, man. They're another conversation. They're just blowing up over there in all respects, in rentals and real estate and just everything. Whole economy as a whole it's thriving because of this non-regulated stuff that's going on.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you see some of these stats about how much money, Chris, I wish I knew the exact number, but even in a small town like Buffalo, New York, the socioeconomic impact for I got how you get the end of year results from Airbnb. Dude, it was astronomical. Buffalo made tens of millions of dollars extra to small businesses, literally to small businesses in downtown Buffalo because of the Airbnb guests alone. Just the Airbnb.
Wow, that's crazy.
So when you think about some of these bigger markets, bigger cities, bigger states, if Buffalo's doing that type of a bang, I can't even imagine how big this is in global cities, man. This is a game changer. This is a globe changer. The other thing too, me and you were talking about it the other day, Chris. I think short-term real estate is changing real estate forever. I think, for example, the tradition, like our grandparents and our parents, they always thought about saving up, buying that house, living in that house for 30, 40, 50, 60 years. Dude, with what just happened in the last year for all of us, and then for people that are lucky, like me and you, professionals who are able to work wherever, as long as we got internet, we're ready to rock and roll for our customers, ready to rock and roll for our team. Dude, this is like a different thing. Like I know my wife and I were talking about moving forward, we're going to pick a new country each year. We're just going to get an Airbnb for 30 to 60 days. And that's how we're going to get to learn a new country, learn a new culture, meet new people, meet new friends, all that fun stuff. It's a game changer, man.
What's crazy to touch on that, Adrian, what you said is I was talking to a developer. The dude has over $170 million worth of real estate, right? And he was like, what's crazy, Chris, is like, this is where I see our sector going, is we're going to be doing more larger corporations. And of course, we're still going to have those low income individuals and regular tenants in here. However, I believe that in regards to proximity and in regards to actual contracts and to actually sell this building, it's going to go to corporate leases.
Yeah.
Because corporate leases pay their bills.
Yep.
Right. Would you rather deal with one person with 40 doors or 40 people with 40 doors?
Yeah.
So he was like, this is where it's going. And a lot of these big corporations understand that this is where the market is going. Is look what we just handed. These people that are staying in these big buildings that we're in haven't paid their rent. Just like what you said, one of your family members, half this building isn't paying rent. This is what's going on right now. And that's why when we come in, it's gotten easier for us to acquire, 20 to 40 rentals at scale like I do.
Yep. That's awesome. Chris, look, this has been an absolute pleasure. Before we wind down today's episode, I want to make sure that I give you a chance. where can people find out more about you, Chris Thomaser, and where can people find out about all the awesome things that you guys are doing right now today?
Oh, well, number one, let me thank you for being on here, sir.
Absolutely,
I appreciate
man.
that,
My pleasure. My pleasure.
Yeah. For all the listeners today, I'm going to send Adrian a copy of my book, The Short-Term Mental Riches, absolutely free. Hopefully you guys pick that up. It pretty much will show you the A to Z, how to get started with a short-term rental business, but also it gives you the idea of having that mindset shift of actually being a successful individual outside of real estate. So that's the main component. If you want to find me everywhere on the internet atmosphere, is it fear, right? It's at Get Chris Thomas, GET Chris Thomas, everywhere. YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, name it. If you want to learn how to do short-term rentals, it's the stracademy.com. It's a full training that will show you how to do the short-term rental business from start to scale where I'm at today. And it's been an absolute pleasure being on with you.
I love it, Chris. Well, number one, man, thank you so much for sharing your story, sharing your journey. It's been an absolute pleasure. And you and I will certainly be talking moving forward, my friend. I love that we're connected now, and I'm looking forward to keeping in touch with you, sir.
100%.
Awesome, Chris. All right, have a great day, man.
You too, man.